Hey guys, I just saw the new Bob Dylan movie, right? You know, the big one that everybody's talking about, starring Timothee Chalamet and a whole bunch of other people. People are really excited, like, oh, Bob Dylan, they're going to make a movie about Bob Dylan, oh man. No, the movie sucks, alright? I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, folks, but it is another piece of slop that Hollywood has put on our plate, and I'm going to explain to you guys in 5 ways why this movie is bad.
This land is your land.
Number 1 has to be the demonization of Bob Dylan electronica era. This movie wants to make you know that the electronica era was bad, but not only does it want you to know it was bad, that it was evil. And that's the messed up part, in my opinion. So the scene starts with Bob Dylan playing a live show, and he's, playing to his fans, and then the string breaks, right? So he has to leave the show, throw the guitar away because it's broken now, and he's going to Guitar Center, right? And he's looking for a guitar, and he sees an electric guitar. It's not like, oh, maybe I'll try this. No. The electronic guitar starts, emitting, metal music and, fire and brimstone, and, there's demons laughing and people crying. So Bob Dylan just grabs the guitar. Instantly, we hear this, evil laugh, and Bob Dylan comes out dressed up like Dracula. And, he's playing his songs, but he has, a demonic pitch-shifted voice. And it's crazy, all right? I understand. Back in the day, when this happened, people were really angry at Bob Dylan. I think we all remember that moment at the Menthol Music Festival. A guy from the audience pointed at him, was like, Judas, and, Bob Dylan pointed back, and a bunch of demons from a pit of hell grabbed that person and threw them down in the pit. But then we get to the ending of the movie. It was discovered in Bob Dylan's contract that he now has to babysit the Jackson 5. So, they're having a good time, and they decide, hey, let's go to the studio and do a jam session, right? So they're going to the studio to do a jam session. At this point, Bob Dylan got over his electronic ways, but he accidentally grabs an electronic guitar. It turns into an axe, and he cuts everybody's heads off while saying the N-word with the hard R. And, the only person that's not that is Michael Jackson, because he's too small, and he's covered in blood. And Bob Dylan just looks at him and says, hey kid, the only way you can defeat me is if you turn into a werewolf zombie thing. And then he leaves. It's a good way. It's a good way to market the future film in the MCU with, Michael Keegan Peele playing Michael Jackson. But it just seems way too over the top. It really feels like they're really, ruining who Bob Dylan was. This was just something you wanted to do, and you're attacking him for it. It's just fucked up, in my opinion.
This land is my land.
Number 2 has to be the complete and utter character assassination of fellow folk musician Phil Ochs. Now, when I saw that Phil Ochs was in this film, I was actually kind of excited because I like some of Phil Ochs' work. But when he comes in, it becomes clear that he's meant to be the villain, and I don't know why. Every single time Bob Dylan wants to do something new, Phil Ochs comes in and is like, that will never work, Bob. You're never going to make it in the music industry. It's just weird because he's not like this. He was never like this in any sort of way. There's no documentation of him being like this, right? And, there was this one time where he steals, Bob Dylan's money so he can buy heroin. And Bob Dylan's like, hey, Phil Ochs, why'd you steal my money to buy heroin, man? I'm going to tell everybody about that. The only people that will care is a small circle of friends. It was interesting, to learn what that song was about, but I just don't think it was, a good thing to bring up, And a lot of that just gets way worse almost all the time. At one point, Joan Baez breaks up with Bob Dylan and decides to sleep with Phil Ochs. But, in the next scene, he comes back because Phil Ochs has, a micro penis. And then there's the ending of the movie, right? Where Phil Ochs' heroin days finally catch up to him. And, he's dying in a bed. He's like, you've always been a better musician than me, Bob. I'm a complete talentless nobody. It's like, just thinking to myself, dude, are you fucking kidding me? All right, Phil Ochs has done a lot of great fucking albums, all right? Pleasure at the Harbor, that one album with all the protest songs. Pleasure at the Heart.
California.
Number 3, it has to be the just bad miscasting of every character, alright? We got Timothee Chalamet. Everybody loves Timothee, you know. We all like him, but he looks 16 in the movie, right? Like Bob Dylan's like somewhere like 20s, early 20s, right? But he's, you know, he looks 16, and it's just like, okay, this is a little bit off-putting, but you know, I can deal with it. I can roll with the punches. And then of course we get to the moment where we meet Joan Baez, right? We see like this 12-year-old girl, and it's like, oh, is that like her little sister? Like she's going to like be lost, and Joan's going to find her, and then they're going, no, that's Joan Baez. The 12-year-old is Joan Baez. And there's like a lot of like gratuitous sex scenes, and the fact that this person looks 12 years old almost ruined them for me. And then of course Phil Oakes, he's 6, which I guess is supposed to be meaning that like, you know, he's immature and whatnot, but it just feels weird, especially when he dies of heroin at the end of the movie, although it was a great scene. But then, you know, it just goes way too ridiculous at the end of the movie. You see, we cut to like a couple of years later where he's about to accept the, you know, Nobel of Honor from Barack Obama, right? And, you know, he comes out and you're expecting, okay, so they're going to like age him up. No, he comes out with like a white Santa beard, and the whole thing looks cheap also. Like, it's very obvious that the like White House is just green screened in badly. And even more crazy is that the character Barack Obama is played by the little black kid from Role Models, which makes no sense. It's even more worse age casting because that kid is 20 years old.
To the New York.
Number 4 has to be all of the Soprano cameos, all right? Now, Timothee Chalamet, he's a big fan of The Sopranos. So ever since Doom Part 1 blew him up, he's basically said, I will not do a movie if I can't put someone who is in The Sopranos in that movie. So as we all know, in Doom Part 2, you know, his ship gets shot down and he ends up on Tatooine. And he has to like put the ship somewhere while he goes on his like big quest. And he meets Ray Liotta, who's like a ship engineer. And, you know, he doesn't really fit the scene and he was never in the original material. But it was a good little moment. It was a way to send off a legendary actor by doing something really cool. But then we get to this movie, and for some reason, Bob Dylan is always being followed by 3 fat Italian dudes called Bobby's Big Boys. And it's not even like introduced, it's not even like a plot point. Like he gets off the train to like New York, he's like, New York City, here I come. And then all these fat Italian guys just come out with it and it's like, yeah, we gotta follow Bobby, guys, let's go. And one of the people there, he's credited as James Gandolfini. James Gandolfini's dead. The other person, I did some research. Turns out he was in like a background. He was like a background character in one of the Soprano like episodes. He was making a sub or something. And the third guy's Greek, all right? And there's really nothing that they do, like when he's about to like go electronic, like they're like, no, Bob, don't do it, man. You gotta stay away from that stuff. You know, it's like, okay, so they're pulling him back. But before that, he decides to cheat on Joan Baez with Mary from Peter, Paul, and Mary. And they're all like at the bed cheering him on, like, yeah, man. Their character motivation is really crooked, but if that was the only thing, that'd be fine. But every single time, they had to comment on everything. They had to get the last word about everything, all right? Like, Bob Dylan, like, can be taking a dump, and they're like, hey, Bobby, you're taking a dump. And every single time, he gets off fucking stage, all right? Like, they're like, oh, man, Bobby, I didn't know he could play that. You keep hanging out with him. You know he's an artist. But then it gets too fucking far when we get to the final scene, the end of the movie. Bob Dylan has explosive diarrhea, so the big boys just decide, yeah, we'll do the show for you, man. Do this little song called We're Bobby's Big Boys, and we're loving it. All right? And, you know, they can hit, like, some notes, and, you know, they have some great dance moves, but it's a fucking Bob Dylan movie. I don't care! Oh, Bobby's Big Boy!
From the Redwood Forest.
Number 5, the final reason why you should not watch this abomination of a movie is all the anti-Indian rhetoric. Alright, when this movie was being filmed, the H-1B1 stuff, it was a hot button topic, right? So during one of the scenes where Bob Dylan tries to become like a, grocery store worker before he becomes famous, right? He gets replaced by an Indian person. He's really upset about that. And that's a good little piece of social commentary. Like, it really shows that the world still hasn't really changed about, immigrants and sort of like job placement and all of that stuff, right? But then we get to the part where him and the Beatles meet the Maharishi, and he keeps making like street shitter jokes and talking about how bad curry is. And he shows him like his sick AI like edits of like Indians covered in shit. And like, it's just inappropriate. I don't even think the Maharishi was fucking Indian. But then we get to the ending of the movie, right? So, Bob Dylan's on stage. He's playing like this new song. He's like, "Hey guys, I made the greatest song in the world." And him and his best friend Don Henley from the Police are playing this song about some guy named Raji who lives next door to Bob Dylan. You can tell that Timothy's just playing this song with such vitriol, talking about how bad he smells and how he doesn't use a toilet. And, he starts doxing this person. Like, in real life, like, all his doxes, all of his kids' doxes, his wife's dox, his grandchildren's dox, and his grandchildren is like 2 years old. And it's like, what the fuck, Timothy? I came here to watch a movie about one of the greatest folk artists ever, and all I get is, fucking, like, evil, like, satanic electronic instruments, I get, like, a 10-year-old Joan Baez, and I get, like, the big boys all dancing around, having a good time, and I don't know what the answer is! The answer's blowing in the wind! Where does the fucking wind? What wind? Why can't I figure out where the fucking wind's blowing? So yeah, don't watch this movie.
Land was made for you and me.